the music. You will be inspired to think higher, realize your gift. Join the music and Michelle and Gina. Turn this up and through your speakers is the music of music.
And good evening. It is the Muses Behind the Music, and I am your host, Michelle Fallon. Hey, looky here, muses and other fellow muses out there. Tonight I have my friend, a very special guest with us. Her name is Stephanie Kristina. And she is an entertainment lawyer, and she is a phenomenal musician. I have been knowing this awesome young lady since she was like 13 years old. I'm not even going to tell you how old she is now because then that would date me, and we're not doing that. But I'm so super proud of her because you'll see for yourself, you'll hear for yourself tonight as we get into conversation. So go on ahead and will you kindly like this, love it. Hey, Meaty, share, please share. If you're on YouTube, if you are here on Facebook, share to whatever your platforms are. I super appreciate your support and your love. Hey, let's go on ahead. I need one of those little clapping sound things to welcome her, Stephanie Kristina. Hey, Steph.
Hey.
Yeah.
We're here.
We here, girl. So super excited to have you, Steph. Thanks so much for doing this. I thought that this was so important to be able to have a conversation, not about just the awesomeness of your music, because you are a singer, a pianist, a songwriter, but also that you have wrapped this element of law into what you are doing. And that is so important because Lord knows, I'm seeing a lot of different things on social media platforms, and we're going to talk about that a little bit because I think people need to know just how safe or unsafe they are really being when it comes to utilizing other people's music, utilizing their music. I know that we all know that Facebook has had this way of shutting folk down
Right.
when they haven't been utilizing their own music. And I think that that's dynamic because the composers and the artists, they lose out
Right.
when we are playing their stuff. And from one who writes their own music, I know that you can empathize with them firsthand in experience. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. I want people to be able to see you in living color. So tell us about the EP that you have, first of all, from the position of you being this dynamic musician.
Okay, so the EP is getting up there in age. It was called The Hour. I actually was working on this my third year of law school. So we had Fridays off, and on Fridays I was in the studio trying to finish this up. It was just a labor of love. I had been writing for a very long time, arranging for a long time. Finally got some people that came into my life to really help me bring the vision into fruition.
Mm-hmm.
So we went ahead and we did that. It was such a fulfillment for me. I can't even, if it was for no one else, it was for me. And the whole idea of that EP was timing. It's called The Hour, and the first track is about something happening at a specific time, and you recognizing the time and trying to get another person to come into agreement with you on that. It was just a great project, a great learning experience. What we got, and I say we because you don't do these things alone,
right?
We got nominated for, I forget, it was like an international independent music award. We got on the ballot for best urban EP. So that was a huge accomplishment for me. I felt really proud of that. A few years later, I released a single called IDK. Worked with the same people I worked with before. We won the 2019 Whammy for best
Yes.
soul song. And again, that was just an amazing blessing that that is well received, by our peers. So that's where I'm at. I did release another single last year called Don't, and I'm working on some new stuff to come out next year as well.
I love it. So to all of the muses that are out here listening, hey, by the way, Steph, you call yourself Saint T.
Yes.
Well, can you tell how'd that come about? I've always wanted to ask you.
I don't know.
LOL. Okay.
Look, I'm going to be honest. I don't remember how it came about. I knew that I wanted to change my stage name, and I really don't remember how Saint T came about.
Yeah.
I do not. I know that I was playing around with certain iterations of my name and my initials, and I guess I moved away for a while, and I lived on a street called St. Thomas. And during those 10 months that I lived there, it's coming back to me now, it was really transformative in me furthering developing my own creative vision for how I wanted to sound. I think one thing I learned from my first EP, I learned that I didn't know a lot. So I had people around me who knew a lot more than me, and I leaned into them to learn more about not only the craft of recording, the craft of producing, but even the craft of utilizing my own voice. And, we hear something different inside than what others hear when we're singing. So just learning to recalibrate, learning to be more critical in a good way, trying to get the best out of myself. So all that was encompassed in that first EP. During that time where I was living on St. Thomas, I was really in a place where I was forced to lean into my own intuition in terms of what I wanted the sound to sound like. And I started developing that there. And that was kind of a catalyst for a change, more of myself.
Yeah.
And that was around the time I decided I wanted to change the name, and I ended up with Saint T.
It is so easy for us, especially when we have social media. Social media, to me, it is a curse and a blessing. Absolutely. And if you don't know how to utilize it properly, especially for the young people, you can really mentally, emotionally, and spiritually find yourself in a rabbit's hole. And it can be so very dangerous. And so you've got all these people who are coming out, and they're doing their TikToks and, throwing up their videos of these little clippets of their voice. And so it brings people to have this competition, like, oh, am I supposed to sound like that? And if I don't do runs, am I actually singing? And will people like me? And I need to, it's like a lot of different things that are in there. You had on your Facebook this young woman who I guess is a producer. But I like what you were saying about you having your EP and learning yourself, because she was saying the very same thing, that she wrote a show and the show is 3 years old and everybody is coming out, well, when's your next thing? And she's like, the show is only old to the people who have seen it before.
Exactly.
But it needs to develop. She's still trying to develop herself, which in turn would develop all of these other projects that's going on. So I appreciate that you said that, because oftentimes I think that we are very hard on ourselves and society and in home, because we've been cultured to force people to know what they want to do in life, where they want to live, what they want to eat, all by the age of 18 years old. And as artists, so much of who we are grows along with us. Not just goes, it grows along with us. So, Steph graduated. I call her Steph. Y'all can't call her Steph because I've been knowing her for a long time.
For a really long time.
Y'all call her Saint T. Period. All right. So, 13. I met this young lady. She was probably 12. And I tell you something, Steph, I never did say this to you, but I got spoiled. I got real spoiled when I had you in church with me because I didn't want nobody else to play. I didn't want anybody else to play. And when you went to college, I was having a fit.
Oh, no.
I was having heart failure, really and truly, because you get used to it and you're so incredibly gifted. It is the anointing of God on your life. And it was when you were in your teenage years that I discovered too that you were singing. I couldn't believe it. It's like an amazing combination that you can play and sing for yourself. Professional roles as a vocal ensemble. She got her law degree from American University, Washington College of Law. She has her own law firm entitled SKT Legal. And it focuses in on entertainment law, copyright and trademark law, nonprofit law, and business law. Hey, listen, y'all, especially to the people who are out here writing songs. We will jump in this in a minute. Y'all need to know some real pertinent information to the success of your business because some things scare me. And I don't know that much about law. I do have a lawyer, and God bless my lawyer for being able to give me some good sound advice, especially when contracts come in front of my face and I'm just moving through even social media. Like I didn't realize just how important that was. But I want people to see a little bit of your music side. This was a video. Share the song that we're going to get a little clip on.
Okay, so this song is called IDK, and the whole premise of the song is it's very autobiographical.
Mm-hmm.
It just talks about how, you know, I had parents who gave all that they could to give me the best chance at life. And I took that, I went to school, I got a degree. But the thing that people can't teach you all the way
Mm-hmm.
is love.
Yeah.
Self-love is a journey. Loving another person is a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And you can only get the lessons, but until you're in the trenches, you don't realize how much you don't know. And that's what the song is about.
Oh, I love that so much. We're gonna try to come back to that little sentence right there too, because that's super crucial. All right, here we go. Little clip for y'all.
What you cannot see that it's so hard for me to give you my all. 'Cause when it comes to this love, I just know. Show me the way to your heart. Show me the way to a higher love. Show me the way to your heart. Show me where to start.
I was feeling that, Steph. Girlfriend, I was feeling that. And that dress is fly. Okay, yeah, you can let me borrow that at any given time. All right, I appreciate that. That was hot. That was hot. How long did it take to pull all the video together and all that stuff? Like people don't realize the time that goes into this and let alone the resources. Let alone the resources. Uh-huh.
Well, my co-writer wrote the treatment.
Okay.
And
what is a treatment for those of us who are not familiar with this world we live in?
And I wasn't either.
Mm-hmm.
So a treatment is essentially a detailed outline of the video. So it's the concept, but it goes deeper than that when you're actually getting ready to produce film content. So it takes a working understanding of how people perceive video, attention span, blocking, lighting, and interspersing like different scenes so that you still have a coherent theme going through. And so the treatment was written, and then we hired a team to come shoot it. Then it was a matter of finding the location
that
matched the theme, finding locations that contributed to the story, getting permission to film, because that's a whole other thing. If you're going to film on private property. So there was a whole logistics part of that. Hair and makeup I did myself because independent artists on a budget.
Great. It was great. It was great. Yeah.
So it took, we did it in a day, but it was a very, very long day.
Sure.
But again, you don't get that much done in a day without planning. You know, it wasn't just pull out something from your closet. We're going to throw this together and see what happens. It took a lot of thought, a lot of patience on my part, because I really didn't do that much. It was really people behind the scenes setting the lighting. Okay, let's do this again because the lighting is wrong. And then it was the whole thing about post-production.
Yes.
I hate to see myself on video. Always have. So I know dealing with me was probably, they needed patience. Because I'm like, I don't like, you know. But again, it's a learning process. Becoming self-aware of what your movement is and how that translates, because you feel one way, right? But are you projecting enough to convey?
Absolutely.
So looking at those things, picking out the best of what we had, running through edits. Then it was a whole post-production thing where we had to plan the rollout. One thing that I did do was hire a team to help me with social media marketing on Facebook.
Yes.
So we used this and got some really amazing analytics about where people who the music resonated with, where they lived, what kind of people they were, what their other interests were.
Yeah.
And I had an ads manager that was excellent at the job. I think during our campaign, we got 250,000 views on Facebook for the video. And it was just an amazing learning experience, and how the work doesn't end when the song is finished, when the video is finished. You're just beginning. And that's one of the lessons I learned from the first EP is I did not plan enough of a rollout to keep the momentum going. Yes, if they see it, they may resonate with it, but you got to find out a way to get it in front of people, and not just people, but the right people.
There you go.
And so that was a case study for us to figure that out.
Yep. We've got a lot of young artists that, and I'm hoping that they're listening, and young in the sense of age and young in the sense of experience to this thing, that they don't know that they don't realize that it is more than you just putting out a product. You really have to have the plan well before you even begin to know how, because it really starts as soon as that product is done. That's where the legwork really begins. And people don't seem to understand that. You'll waste a lot of money, or you'll have a lot of CDs sitting inside your living room next to the front door. And nowadays they don't even do that anymore. But you know what I'm saying? It won't go anywhere just because you just finished a product. So I'm glad that you said that on that part, because it's so important that they realize that, have a plan. And you know, the more and more you do it, the more I think that it will flow. It will become, for every lesson, you'll understand the things that you'll add to the next experience that's in it. I love the fact that you are, again, a musician and a lawyer. I'm not exactly sure how you find the time to balance all those things, because these are, they're connected thanks to the music, but they still are very different, and they take different energies. How do you find the space to balance? Are you focusing in on one more than the other right now? Or are you actually trying to align these two gifts and make them work at the same time?
Well, normally when I'm asked about balance, my short answer is what balance?
Right.
But I've been running SKT Legal going on 6 years now.
Wow.
And I've been a professional musician for way longer than that. And what I have learned is to ebb and flow with the opportunities and the needs of my clients as they arise. So there are seasons where I'm on the phone all day, all week, dealing with client issues. There are times when I have a little more time and can do more music. And there's times where I thankfully have a lot of musical things going on. I have learned to kind of create space for the things that I want. So there, in a sense, I do have more of a balance where I'm getting fed from both of those.
Yeah.
And I say fed because law is a professional skill, right? But why I do law and why I do music comes from the same place.
Which
and
is
it's about creation.
Yes.
What I have always used, if you ever get a business card of mine, it'll say SK Legal and it'll say at the bottom, create your vision.
Yeah.
So I work with people who are creators. If you're a business owner, you're a creator.
Yeah.
If you're a nonprofit, founder, you're a creator, artist, creator. And also there's, especially with the nonprofit work, there's a healing aspect.
Yeah.
Most people don't go into nonprofits
Wow.
for money, right? There is a need that they have perceived that needs healing. And music is a healer too. So there's commonalities between the two that don't seem apparent at first, but I have really learned to draw on those connections to make it work for me, especially because it is very analytical. It can be stressful. There are high stakes situations. You're dealing with other people's investments. There's a lot on the table sometimes, but if I hold on to the root of why I do what I do, and it can connect with the client that way, we get pretty good outcomes.
Yeah.
It's fulfilling for me.
Period. That's it.
Yeah.
The fulfillment that you are receiving from that. And I think that becomes a part of the calling. What is the difference between, the entertainment lawyer, a manager, and an agent? Because I think we kind of toss around those three words. How interconnected are they? Can I go as an artist with one than the other? Like, I will tell you from my end, I have a lawyer. I don't have a manager or agent. In part, I don't really want to give up that kind of money. You know what I'm saying? I'm being really truthful about it. But and I was speaking, one time on the podcast with, Matthew Whitaker and the String Queens manager about this very thing. Everybody doesn't need it. The manager and the agent won't be the ones to bring you all of the fame and glory that you think that you're going to get. But how will I know? And what is the difference that I can consider in figuring out whether I need one versus the other?
Well, sometimes the roles and the functionality of those figures can overlap. More so with agents and managers, because the whole idea is for them to get you opportunities, right? Manager, I think, ideally has a more holistic role in the career and the success of the artist, because the manager, in my opinion, has got to manage the team. You're managing the artist, you're helping them chart the course, but you're also identifying needs and pulling in resources or people in order to bring those plans into completion. So in the sense of a role, I think of a manager as kind of overarching. They get their percentage for getting on the phone, presenting you to people who are able to provide you with different opportunities, helping you forge those relationships, because really it's all about relationships, right?
Absolutely.
And maintaining, finding new ones, all of that. Even recognizing when a certain relationship needs to end. And how to do that in a way that is professional and that it's in your best interest. So then you have agents who, if you're talking about a booking agent, their job is to sell you to like venues or potential opportunities that are in alignment with who you are and what you offer. The attorney comes in to make sure that all those deals run smoothly. In the traditional sense of the music industry, people paid entertainment attorneys, especially those who had a lot of major label relationships, a lot of money to just take their tape in and walk it in. So you have some purely transactional based functions of an entertainment attorney, but entertainment attorneys do a lot more than that.
Sure.
So when your booking agent says I have an opportunity for you and your manager says that's a great opportunity, the entertainment lawyer says, let me see that contract and I'll tell you if it's a good opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a job to make sure that those technical aspects of your arrangements and those relationships are, number one, clear,
Yes.
right? And that they make sense for the parties involved.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when I was talking about when a relationship ends, those contracts should determine how a relationship ends. And
very true.
Clear from the outset. And that's one thing artists are afraid sometimes to approach potential collaborators with contracts. And I say, well, if it doesn't go the way you want it to, what will you do? Well, we'll figure it out when we get there. Mm-hmm. And that's when you end up with a really big mess. Mm-hmm. And I joke around, but people who know me, I say all the time, pay now or pay later. Do this work up front, because then the expectation has been set. And so I often see my role is working to understand the client's vision and then making sure that the technical elements are there to protect that vision.
Yeah.
In the entry and in the exit.
I noticed that a lot of people, it's just that uncomfortable space of talking about money.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to really deal with that, yet we want to get paid.
Right.
And, you have to, because people are, it goes to being to how you consider a part of your worth and speaking up for yourself. And, if you can't, then you're hiring somebody who you trust.
Right.
Who you really trust. Right. I can't stress that word enough, that they're going to do it for you. They're going to be the voice for you, that you're not going to enter into anything that is nutty,
right.
Or anything like that. And, so how would you recommend artists having an entertainment lawyer? Is it a necessity? Is it a necessity sometimes? Like, get a retainer and, work it out with the lawyer that, when I have such and such events, this is when I will contact you, or I got these contracts in front of me. How do you know? Could you? What is something really simple that if I can't afford a lawyer at any given time in my life, I have a contract in front of me and I want to know, how do I read through it and know that it is to my advantage?
The short answer to that question, to all of those questions that question begs, is it depends. There's no concrete way or piece of advice that will work in every situation. Gotcha. In terms of contracts, I say this all the time, and you hear this literally every week, where somebody's upset about a deal that they signed, and then they say, well, I didn't understand the contract.
Right.
If you don't understand it, you got to get understanding. And I understand that not every attorney is accessible. I spoke at a forum, and someone came up to me afterward and said, well, some attorneys, they turn me down, or they rub me this way. I said, there's other attorneys. The one that you want may not be the one that's for you, and you've got to do the work. Some attorneys offer consultations before you need to make a choice whether to retain. You may pay a little bit; they may be free, but you'll be able to get some insight. $50 for a time to ask those questions, to say, is there a red flag here or is there not? Or can you tell me when I need to call you? Mm-hmm. Those will give you a lot of peace of mind, and it's not an investment like a retainer agreement is. Mm-hmm. A retainer agreement is really for when you have a steady flow or a steady need for a certain service or group of services. And so you arrange that with the attorney. It really just depends. But again, with contracts, if you don't understand it, you got to get understanding. And it may start with asking the person who gave you the contract, I don't know what this part means, and can you write it? Can we come to understanding and make sure that it reads the way that we understand it? Mm-hmm. Because there are things in contracts called merger clauses, meaning that whatever's in the agreement, the written agreement, is what it is. So if you said something else and agreed on something else and it doesn't make it into the document, it doesn't matter. And a lot of times people will argue, said, well, on that day at the studio, you said we was going to split it 50-50. The contract said 30-70. I signed it because I went off of what you said and not what I read. And now we have a problem. But there was probably a section, what we call a merger clause, that says, if it's not in here, it doesn't matter. So even if you were to work on a contract with the third party, it doesn't necessarily mean that your legal interests are protected. So that's why.
Say that last part again. That's why.
That's why. That's why I say that it depends when it comes to how can I on my own make sure that something's airtight. Sometimes things are straightforward. Sometimes they are. So I'm not going to make it seem like, every time you get handed a piece of paper, that's a need to retain someone. But if you're serious about your career, at a certain point, you're going to need a professional to look over what you're doing. Yeah. Because it's about preserving your interests.
And as you even say the phrase about preserving your interests, the one thing that I'm trying to get a lot of my young students, I got some extremely talented young people who are in front of me, and they're incredible writers. But again, because social media, they put their stuff out into the atmosphere without any thought. And I tell them all the time, do you have that copy written?
Right.
And 9.9999% of the time, the answer is no.
Right.
So I always let them know someone can steal it. Now, I've got a musician's ear that lets me know, ooh, this is great.
Right.
I've had enough experience to know how I can find out if you have had this copy written or not. And when I discover that you haven't, I can take this because this is free. This is free. And now I'm going to slap my name on it as if I wrote it. And you're going to hear it on the airwaves one day and be like, this is the song that I wrote. What can we used to talk about the poor man's copyright, mailing yourself back a copy back in the day. But we've got way too much access today to even think about doing poor man's copyright. Tell them, Steph, what they need to do.
So the one thing people don't understand is that as soon as copyright attaches when you fix an original idea into a tangible form. So back then it would be like, I take my tape recorder and record my idea into this tape, or recorded the studio and burn it on my CD. Even digitally, if I have a digital file, that would count. So you do have certain protection just in that. So actually mailing something to yourself was never necessary, but it was a way to create an additional layer of evidence that this was created on or around this date. But what's important about actually registering your copyright is, number one, it puts everyone on notice that this has existed as of this date. So if you took it after that, you can't say that you weren't put on notice, right? And also, in extreme cases where somebody's really making some money off of what you're doing, it gives you standing to sue in federal court for infringement. A lot of times people find out someone stole something and it's theirs. They have evidence of the copyright, but I said, is it registered? Well, no. Well, if it's not registered, you can't get to court to fight it until it is. And there's a little safe harbor window for people who failed to do it, and then they found out later that someone was using it. But I try to tell people, just do it on the front and make it part of your practice. Yeah. Before you start publishing stuff. And it's so, the way that social media is, the way that our society is they make you feel like you got to put everything out to stay ahead or to stay in step with what everyone else is doing. And that's just not always the right way. Sometimes it happens that way, but really you got to be thinking, you have to be ready to play the long game. Yes. Right? And be able to protect yourself. And a copyright, most people can go on and do it themselves. I have some clients that have a high volume of output, and then they just say, well, can you handle it? There are tricks that you can use to save money on the copyright fees, and I work with my clients to help them protect themselves in as cost efficient manner as possible. But the thing is, registration is important, especially when you're preparing to formally release music.
And where can you do that, Steph? Where can you get registered?
eco.copyright.gov.
All right, so let's put that out there. eco.copyright.gov.
Yes, eco.copyright.gov. That is the site that you use to register your copyrights.
And that is so important to know. I appreciate that. And I know that the muses and the muses out here listening appreciate that too, just in case you didn't know that before. So the valuing of copywriting, I appreciate that. I appreciate also knowing the difference between the lawyer, the manager, and the agent. The other thing I know that I really wanted to know was the difference between copyright infringement, work for hire, and fair use. Okay. Those are all three big things, but you know,
so big.
Yes. Can you truncate it?
I tried to make it bite-sized. So copyright infringement is any unauthorized use of another person's copyrighted content. So, for instance, if you're on Facebook and you post someone else's song and you say, I don't own the rights to this music, yeah, we know that. It's a pet peeve of mine. Like, it doesn't, we know that it's not yours. And technically, that's infringement. The thing about it is, a lot of artists want people to use their music because that brings value to the brand, right? And sometimes it just happens too many times for people to catch everything. Unless you were Prince, who a baby could be covering his song and you have that taken off of YouTube. So it was within his right to do it. Right. So that's copyright infringement, any unauthorized use of other copyrighted material. What was the other?
Work for hire.
So work for hire is essentially an arrangement where someone is providing intellectual property in the scope of employment. And they have in their agreement that this IP that you have created, sorry, that noise distracted me.
It's okay.
Created is theirs because you created it in the scope of the employment relationship. So even in the context of recording artists and music. So when you go to a recording studio, you pay the session engineer, right? Whatever their hourly is. Sometimes it's understood that it's work for hire, but I always make sure that people understand because people that participate in the production technically should get credit. So work for hire can come up like that. But that's where the IP or the intellectual property that has been created belongs to the employer. Fair use is actually what's called a defense to copyright infringement. So the whole legal mechanism of fair use has to do with someone saying, you infringed on my copyright, and the alleged infringer says, I did, but it's okay and it's permissible under fair use. So maybe you might use like a paragraph from a book as a teacher in a lesson plan. There are carve-outs like that in the law to allow that content to be utilized. Yeah. So that's what fair use is. Fair use gets really tricky when people talk about sampling music, right? Well, if you do it this way, then it's not copyright infringement, or fair use applies if you chop it up a certain way. And I could go for an hour.
So wait, there was something that had happened on social media with Kanye. In the newest album that he released, someone had sung a line on his album, and Kanye must have heard this line sung by somebody else. But he did not utilize that person's voice. He had a different person. It was a female who sung it, and he had a male sing the same exact line. And the female wants to sue him, or went into suing him, because she said, you used my voice. You used my line, my singing line, on this and you didn't give me any credit. Now, the last I checked, I don't know how many different beats there are in this entire good earth that the Lord created that we have not at some point in time done again, especially a run or a riff. But does she have grounds to stand on from a legal perspective? Can she actually go and sue him for, not giving her any credit for a riff that she did?
Without hearing it, I don't know. And again, when it comes to court, it's all about the music. Like, musicologists have to come in and argue these points.
That's so wild.
So it's a lot that goes into a copyright infringement case to determine if the copying was lawful or unlawful, or if it was even copying at all. Now, if the line, if we're talking about someone wrote words and music and that was used without permission, well, yes, that is unauthorized.
So what this was Toya who just jumped in because she knows about the situation, and she said it wasn't even her song. I'm gonna put this up on the screen. You see it? It's not even her song. Actually, it's a song from Toné that she was singing, and this girl must have been singing it like she must have been singing it just like at a church service. It wasn't even hers. So she sung the riff, and then Kanye was like, "Ooh, I like it. I'm going to have this dude sing the same riff." And people were sending it to her like, "Ooh, Kanye stole your thing," because she got a lot of hits from this now. A lot of hits. And then all of a sudden she's like, "I think I should sue him." People were encouraging her, like, go to court, get your money, but it wasn't hers. I mean,
so basically somebody copied a cover.
Yeah, like she copied a cover. Right. She made the cover. Yes.
And then the cover was used. So that's a whole, issue of tracing back. So we know that the underlying material was Toné. She did not write the song, the lyrics or the melody.
Yeah, she sung the song and he took the part of the riff that she sung.
So right now we get into difference in copyright where it becomes an issue of this concept. There's two types of copyright, right? Mm-hmm. There's copyright in the underlying musical composition, which is basically like what you would see on a lead sheet, the words, the lyrics, right, the music, or arrangement, if you will. Then there's a song that's called the sound recording copyright. So say I do a cover of, I don't know, X Factor by Lauryn Hill. Mm-hmm. I didn't write that song.
Right.
But I recorded a version of the song. Mm-hmm. And that recorded version has its own copyright attached to it for the performance of the underlying musical work.
Correct.
So that's why that allegation has traction. Wow. Because she essentially created a new sound recording mm-hmm. of an underlying musical work. I don't know if she did it correctly, but there was a sound recording created. So yes, now I've used your sound recording in my sound recording without permission.
Wow.
So again, when we're taking apart the puzzle, and there's elements that we've got to go back again. It's tracing it back. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So not only is Toné, run him a check, because if he wrote the song, there could be 10 other writers. We don't know, but assuming that let's just assume for the sake of this example or for this conversation that he wrote it.
Right. Good point.
You got to talk to him too.
Go back, right?
And you got to figure out, did she talk to him? Again, the law allows for people to make covers. They just say you've got to make sure that the person that you're covering gets the royalty. It's called a mechanical royalty, and it's set by the government. Mm-hmm. Wow. But it only covers the recording. It does not cover putting a recording to visuals. That requires a sync license. Mm-hmm. The government does not regulate that. You're supposed to get permission from the original copyright holder of the musical work to do that.
See, this is why I trust a lawyer. Because for me, already, with all of these different, ways of, there's two kinds of copyright, and there's here and there's here. Just let me know the basics, and then I trust you enough to go on ahead and handle it for me, because that's not my gift. It's not my lane, and I'm gonna stay in my lane and let you do yours. But that, oh my gosh, that was a wealth of information that I didn't know. Because surely when it came to me, I was like, oh, she don't have a leg to stand on. Now I don't know nothing about law, but here I'm saying she don't have a leg to stand on. But for everything that you had said and the tracing back, because now what I know in when we end up with organization having to do a song, we have to go and get permission in order to do it, and so there's so many fine-tuned things, and we've done videos, and you're correct, there's just a plethora of different steps to ensure that we are not about to be going up in anybody's court.
That part.
Because that part and because we are copyright infringing or just the misuse of things. Absolutely not. So I want to know what kind of drew you. You talked about, here's the thing. I was talking to my brother the other day, and as much as we both know that we had parents who were extremely supportive of what it is that we wanted to do in our lives. Mm-hmm. I remember a conversation my father had with me about, consider adding computers to the music. Now, everybody in the world knows that computers and I don't even get along. So my dad was thinking more of, you can really make some money, because at the time, computers were just beginning to come out. And I was like, I'm not interested. There's no way, I'm not doing it. But I've noticed that there are just so many people who are making sure that they have, law, music, medicine, music, psychology, music. Yeah. Everybody's making sure that they maintain it and infuse it. Were you afraid that if you did not have law or anything else that to fall back on, that you were going to have a hard time? It would be a struggle. It would not produce what you thought it would.
At the outset of that decision to pursue law, it was really not my choice. I remember clearly in my freshman year, before I had declared a major in college, my mom called me up and she said, it's spring semester, doing well. Have you thought about your major? I said, I'm going to major in music. What else?
Right.
And she was like, yeah, what else?
Oh, I know your mother.
Right. You need a plan B.
Right.
And I understand it because, the life of an artist, to people who don't understand what arts careers, the full spectrum of what that can look like, it's scary to them. Mm-hmm. And so I thought about, personally, I said, well, if I can't do, what would I want to do other than music? And I said, well, if I can't get it done, I want to help other people do it. Mm-hmm. And that's what led me into the law. And, for me, I went all through law school. I took all the required classes, and first 2 years of it, I hated it because it was not the traditional picture of what a lawyer does.
Mm-hmm. Was not Perry Mason and Matlock.
That was not in alignment with who I am and what my purpose is. So I got a really great mentor my third year, and I started doing the clinical program, where I was working with nonprofits and arts organizations in DC, and really was encouraged to use the knowledge, but to put it into alignment with my purpose. Mm-hmm. So that's just an awesome way that it worked out in my situation. But I don't think that having additional sources of income or being open to the opportunities of additional sources of income within the musical field or alongside it is a bad thing. Mm-hmm. But it just depends on each person.
Absolutely.
And it's about, if you're going to do that, what is the common thread that will sustain you? Because if you're not sure or clear about that, you're going to get pulled like this. And I see that happening a lot. Mm-hmm. And so if you're doing these things, you've got to have one thing that that pulls it all together for you to sustain you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Finding the common thread
Mm-hmm.
between those two things so that you have a level of sustenance. What is something that you can share with everybody? Just maybe a couple of things that you have seen on social media that you're like, oh my god, I wish they wouldn't do it. It's like they could get in so much trouble. Just some safeguards that people can have for themselves when it comes to the law guarding themselves so that they don't get caught up in social media, throwing music out there, anything.
Well, one thing about social media that's kind of like the wild, wild west when it comes to reconciling it with the existing laws that govern copyright and trademark, other IP, because the laws are old. They don't move as fast as technology. So that's why we have all of these infringing acts that are so ingrained in the fabric of how we interact with social media or on social media. That's really technically infringement. Again, if you're doing a live on Instagram and you've got somebody else's music playing in the background, well, you've put someone else's music to video. You don't have a sync license for it. It's technically infringement. But because of the functionality of social media, many people
Just let it pass.
get called out on it. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean that you can't, because someone could be watching you use their content and be like, number one, I didn't authorize it. I don't want you to use it for whatever reason. And they can hit you with the takedown notice and make you take it down. I mean, that was what was happening with during the pandemic when DJs were doing sets on their lives. They were technically needed a sync license to do that. And then, when you're in a venue, those venues pay fees to the performance rights organizations like CSAC, ASCAP, and BMI. Well, if you're doing it from your home, you're not paying for that, and you're not allowing those artists to get their 5 cents or 10 cents or, whatever it is. So there are issues with that. Now, from what I understand, like DJ D-Nice was able to work with Instagram to set it up, and he's doing it lawfully. But there was a lot of people who, your favorite brunch DJ, right, who was shut down, who was shut down for doing the same thing. And that's why. So again, we're seeing over and over where we're trying to find ways to reconcile the law with the functionality and the value that can be derived from social media. So I just tell people, you never assume that something is lawful or necessarily unlawful. And just because everyone does it doesn't mean that legally someone can't enforce their rights against it. Yeah. Again, as a new artist, I want people to create a dance to my song, or I want people to share, because again, it can get to so many people. It can reach so many people. So there's a value in that. Yes. At the end of the day, I can control whether I want to cut it off or not.
I like that. I like that being said.
That.
Yeah, no, I'm nervous if I were to get up online and just start to utilize people's stuff. I feel like I'm the one that they'd be like, you know what, Michelle Fallon, today I'm taking you to court. Yeah, I just feel
with the red glasses, but we don't like the color red, so she can't use it.
Correct. So no, she ain't doing it. We're done court papers. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like that would come against me. So I'm trying to safeguard myself on all aspects. But I know that this happens so often, especially in gospel music. How many churches ever get permission? But I'll tell you what, during the pandemic, I did realize from working with several different churches, everybody was ensuring that they were legally sound, because that they knew that they were going to still have a praise team ensemble or some sort of singing aggregation doing music that was current, and they wanted to make sure that the permission was there. They were going on video. They were doing a whole lot of things that we would choose a song, and then we would go sing it next week. We weren't thinking about anything, like we'd throw up videos from concerts, just all of those different things. But I think that, money got real tight for everybody when COVID hit. And so they were going to make sure that T's were crossed and I's were dotted for whatever reason possible. I mean, really, there are just so many things that I want to talk about. I say this all the time because, you know, time goes by so quickly, Steph, and yet this is just such a meaty topic. Yeah, and it is a much needed conversation. And there are so many other things that I would like to dive into to ask you about with the law. But I want to go a little bit personal with you. And I just want to know, and we all want to know, what are some of your plans, one plan that you have in the next 10 years for yourself, whether it's, you know, in law, definitely in music. Where would you like to see yourself be? Do you have an artist that you would love to do a collab with?
My dream is to meet Stevie Wonder. That's a musical dream.
Yeah.
Because, you know, as I started playing music way before I really got introduced to the level of songwriting that is Stevie Wonder, right? But I remember I was like 12 or 13, and my dad, we used to ride around and play music all the time, and he played Intervisions. And I could cry every time I listened to it. Yeah. And it always stuck with me because, like, the colors that were created. Yeah. The clarity of that project, the message of that project always just resonated with me. So musically, I just want to meet him. Yeah. I just want to shake his hand. Yeah. Honestly, because that was one of, you know, within top 3 of people who, through their expression of their purpose, made it feel safe for me to do that. Yeah. So that on the musical, I don't even need a collaboration. I just like to talk to you for a few minutes and let you know how much what you did encouraged what I do. I don't care about that, but it's just the courage to do that.
I wonder if people really understand the value of, and I know older generation folk, you know, we get it, but I really wonder if this generation gets the value of being able to sit at someone's feet. To just have, you know, the access to that person for them to pour into you, like to pour into you. I mean, when it was happening to me at Howard and with my voice teachers, I mean, I had world-renowned teachers that the Creator afforded me the opportunity to study under: Sylvia Olden Lee and Charlotte Holloman and Regina McConnell and Carmen Balthrop, and to have lessons with these people who would talk to me about their life experiences, not just as an artist, just life experiences, and what it did for me as a person, as an artist, the doors it had opened. It is so invaluable. And I don't know if this young generation can really appreciate, but you are not too far removed. And so what would you say to these young people who are out here who are maybe wanting to become lawyers, or they want to become the musician tagged along with something else, to bring those two giftings together, that hopefully you could inspire them, something in your life, maybe a moment that you have that says, I told myself I could?
There's a couple that come to mind, but before I want to answer, you were saying, you know, this people who have had the opportunity to sit at another's feet and just learn from them and have them pour into them. I mean, you were that for me. Oh, you were.
Thanks, Steph.
You were. I mean, you required excellence from me every time. And you got to be around people that require excellence from you. And I'm so grateful for that. And it's been years that you have done that. Either if I was literally like sitting in the room or watching you continue to do what you do. And I like really publicly want to thank you for that and thank God for aligning that. But in terms of I told myself I could, when I decided to start a law firm, I decided I wanted to do a virtual one. This was in 2016. I didn't know about no pandemic or anything like that. And I felt, again, I was about how do I make this knowledge not sit stagnant because it doesn't seem like it aligns. I decided that I was going to do it, and everyone said, well, why? You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do it this way. You shouldn't do it that way. Well, I told myself I could because I was the only one that could tell myself that I couldn't. Right?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's so good.
And again, like for a lot of us, the battle is in our mind. And, you know, the first person talking to us when we get up is our thoughts. And if I couldn't take that insecurity that people are trying to throw at me, if I couldn't take that captive and say, hold on, I have the skill set. This isn't a delusion. You know, I have a plan. I said, well, I'm going to do this. And prayerfully and thankfully, you know, it worked out. But again, telling yourself you could is the most powerful step.
Yeah,
that's a choice that you have made internally.
I love that. I had to throw that quote up there. And I put it in quotes, by the way. I put it in quotes, okay? Don't come for me with that. I told myself I could because I'm the only one who could tell myself I couldn't. Like, I don't think a lot of people, well, I think we get it, but we don't really, it doesn't, and I misspelled it, but y'all get what I'm saying. I forgot the M and you understand what I'm saying. That is so important. That's it. We get these mind monsters that you know just tell us everything negative.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it's so easy to defeat it just by giving it the reverse. Oh no, I can do this. I will do this. I have no other option to that. Hey, Alex Plummer, who just popped up here. There was a question that came in, Steph. I want you just to answer this real quick.
Okay.
And it's on the screen. Keep him from getting flagged or sued when you're playing somebody's music. Even when you put up that dreadful sentence that Stephanie can't stand. Of course, you don't own the rights. How does that work? Does that kind of cover it? Does that kind of protect it? You know,
I mean, does it protect you if you robbed a bank to tell people you robbed a bank? It doesn't change the action. It might speak to an intention, but action is what is actionable. So again, I don't think anyone intends to harm anyone by using music. And again, a lot of times artists want you to share. They want their music to get out there. And so it's ultimately the only way to keep from being sued is to get permission. But sometimes getting permission is costly and not practical. This is maybe not practical. And again, the way that we operate in social media, infringement happens all the time. A lot of people, they do it and no one cares. You know, or it goes undetected because there's literally millions of people doing it every second. So to say, you know, how do I keep from getting sued? Well, it's not up to the person using the music. It's up to the person who owns the music.
Yeah.
And their vision for how they want their music utilized. I go back to Prince, and he didn't want anybody doing anything.
Nothing.
But others are like, you know, as long as it's not attached to something real crazy, I guess I don't care. You know, so there's a spectrum of allowances that rights owners will let people have, but ultimately it's in their hands. Some artists come out and say, I want y'all to sample my music. I want my music to live and to so some people say, just use it. I'm giving y'all, you know, access and I'm giving permission. So it really depends on who owns the rights owner.
Yeah. Man, amazing, Steph. Our time is up, and there's just so I know it went by. It goes by so fast. This is such a great wealth of information. I don't know if you could see me. I was over here jotting down my own notes because there's so much. And of course, when I go through this again, I'm going to be listening back and jotting down some more notes of things that I don't know, and hopefully I can share with some other people. If people want to get in contact with you. They're looking for an entertainment lawyer. They're looking for a musician. Y'all heard her at the top. And if you didn't, you can just go back and listen to this. The girl's got mad skills on the keys. Oh, crazy, crazy, crazy. Awesome writer. And I called out Alex Plummer's name because that's yet another musician who is, he's out in the ATL. Another former student who is amazing, working with some dynamite people like Stevie J, and just out there doing some stuff that would be just a great conversation to get up with in there. How can people get with you, Steph? How
There's
can
a lot of ways.
All right.
So my main Instagram is I am Saint T. No weird symbols in between. It's just I am Saint T. So it will be 2 T's at the end. If you have legal questions and you want to see if a consultation is right for you, email. So the email for that would be S as in Stephanie, S Thomas at sktlegal.com. S Thomas at sktlegal.com. And for professional music inquiries, you can reach me at Sound Vision Entertainment LLC at gmail.com.
Sound Vision Entertainment LLC at gmail.com.
But if you really just don't know where to start, I give you permission to start at Instagram. If it's legal, I'm going to tell you to email me where you need to email me.
That's what's up.
Sometimes it's just easier for people to use Instagram as the first point of contact. So.
Awesome. Yeah, this world of Instagram, and I'm still trying to understand Instagram. It's whatever. One of these days I'll get to it. Listen, Steph, I love you, and I appreciate you so much. I'm so proud of you. So very proud of you, and I'm hoping we can have a Her Sanctuary reunion. Ooh. We didn't even talk about.
Ooh, then I'll tell those stories.
Don't. Let's not and say we did. Here. Okay, right. Let's not and say we did. Oh, thank you so much to all of the Muses who stayed right along the line. You hung out with us for over 45 minutes. Good God, we're over an hour tonight, but it was so well worth it. Please go again and share and like and love and follow Stephanie, follow her music career, support her. Thank you for supporting me. I'm forever so very grateful to all of you. I cannot do this thing without you all. I cannot. And I'm just hoping that it will get gooder and gooder. That's my word, but you can use it. I'm going to trademark that word, gooder and gooder. Okay. I'll come to you, Steph, for the legal advice on that.
I got you.
Until we see one another again. Peace, blessings to you all. Good night.